It all began on a quiet evening when Lena, a young woman in search of a fresh start, moved into her new home. The house was old, a bit run down, but charming in its own way. It had character, something you didn't find in modern homes. The wooden floors creaked beneath her feet, and the windows rattled when the wind blew. But it was a place she could call her own. One evening, as Lena was going through the last of the boxes in the attic, she found something strange. A thick, leather-bound book. It was hidden deep in the corner of the attic, wedged between two old suitcases. The book looked ancient, its cover cracked and worn, like it had been there for centuries. The air in the attic was heavy, almost suffocating, and as soon as Lena touched the book, she felt an odd sensation, like something had awakened. Curiosity got the best of her. She sat down right there in the attic and began to flip through the pages. They were filled with strange symbols, ancient, unreadable writings that seemed to swirl around the page, as if alive. There were also drawings, sketches of faces contorted in pain, figures reaching out with hands that looked as if they wanted to grab her. The more she flipped, the more unsettled she became, but something kept her going. Then she turned to one page that made her blood run cold. It was a picture of a house. It looked exactly like her new home. Every detail, down to the crooked windows and the faded shutters, was captured perfectly. Below the drawing were the words, "The Calling of the House." Lena felt a cold sweat form on her brow. She couldn't explain why, but she suddenly felt very aware of the house around her, as if it were alive, watching her. But she shook off the feeling, telling herself it was just an old, creepy book. She quickly shut it and placed it back in the corner, trying to ignore the growing unease inside her. But that night, everything changed. The house, once peaceful and quiet, now felt wrong. Strange noises echoed through the walls. It started as a low, creaking sound, like the house was settling. But then it grew louder, more distinct, like footsteps moving around her. Lena would stop and listen, her heart racing, but every time she turned, there was no one there. That's when she first heard the whisper. It was soft at first, almost like the wind, but it was unmistakable. A voice, low and hushed, speaking just outside of her hearing. "Lena!" She froze. Her entire body went cold. No one was supposed to be in the house with her. She had just moved in. At first she tried to ignore it, convinced it was just the old house settling, the wind, or maybe even her imagination. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, more desperate, as if someone or something was trying to get her attention. The next day, Lena decided to investigate. She went into the attic again, hoping to find some explanation, maybe something that would calm her nerves. But when she opened the door, her eyes were drawn to the book once more. This time it was open. The pages had changed. The symbols and drawings were no longer the same. The book now had images of her face, her body, sketched in painful detail. There was a picture of her standing in the very attic, her expression twisted in terror. Beneath it, the words, "The End." Lena felt a rush of panic. She slammed the book shut, but it was too late. The air around her had changed. It was thick, heavy, suffocating. Her heart pounded in her chest as she heard the footsteps again, louder now, closer. She turned quickly, but there was no one there. The house felt alive, almost as if it was breathing, waiting. Lena rushed downstairs, but when she reached the bottom, something caught her eye. The attic door was open again. She hadn't left it that way. With her heart pounding, Lena went back upstairs. The stairs creaked beneath her feet, the house groaning as though it were alive. When she stepped into the attic, she saw something that made her stomach turn. The book was open again, and now the pages weren't just about her. They were about the house, about its history. The sketches began to make sense. Faces, figures, shadows, all people who had lived in the house before her, people who had never left. There were symbols drawn next to their faces, markings that seemed to be calling them, drawing them back into the house. And then there was something even worse. One of the figures in the drawings was that of a woman. She stood in the doorway of the house, her face pale and twisted with a grin that sent shivers down Lena's spine. Her eyes seemed to follow Lena as she turned the pages. She had been here before her. The whispers grew louder. Lena! She looked around the attic, her mind racing. What was happening? Why did this house feel like it was pulling her in? What was it about this book? Suddenly the room grew colder. The air around her became thick, almost suffocating. Shadows began to move, stretching and twisting in unnatural ways. Lena tried to run, but the house seemed to be closing in on her, trapping her. The floor beneath her feet cracked, and she felt a chill run through her body as the shadows moved toward her. She turned to run but stumbled, falling to the floor as the room seemed to collapse in on her. The woman's face was the last thing she saw before everything went dark. When Lena woke, she wasn't in the attic anymore. She was standing in the middle of the house, but it was different now. The walls were covered in dark, twisted symbols, and the air was thick with the sound of whispers. The woman stood before her, her grin widening. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. Lena tried to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the darkness. She was trapped, just like the others before her. The house had claimed her, and just like that, she was gone. Lost to the house, her story becoming just another page in its dark, twisted history. This story, my story, is inspired by the movie The Others.